extremely scared. I was shaking, kind of like how I am right now. I felt nauseous. I was afraid I was going to pass out. I have blood injury injection phobia, and I have a history of fainting and getting very, very ill at the sight of blood, or the sound of a drill, or just being the presence sometimes of a doctor wearing a white coat. The first time I passed out, I was 5 years old. My parents brought me to my pediatrician to have a physical to get into school, and the nurse pricked my finger, and I was just right on the floor. I fainted numerous times since. I fainted in church once. There was a little boy in front of me picking his scab, and I saw the blood, and I passed out right in the pew. I fainted in school when every Friday a woman would come in 6th grade, and she'd come and talk to us about the effects that drugs can have on you as part of a Just Say No campaign. And I was so nervous that one day she was going to come talk about heroin. I was anticipating it, and I walked in, and on the board I saw the word heroin, and I immediately got very shaky. I raised my hand so that I could leave the room. I asked to go to the bathroom. My seat was over here, the door was over there. I made it halfway through, and I passed out right in front of the whole entire class. The little boy I had a crush on. It was extremely embarrassing. And it didn't get easier as I got older. I worked for a magazine. I remember sitting in my cubicle at work one day. A girl had been out for a couple days. She had had a surgery, and she came back with just a Band-Aid on her hand from the IV. I had to go into the bathroom, and I passed out in the bathroom. I even fainted on the subway once. Almost passed out on the subway. I was on my way to work. It was rush hour. I heard some guys talking, and one guy was like, "Oh man, what happened to your arm?" And I was like, "Yeah, I went to the doctor, and it took blood, and it's all bruised." And I looked up, and I was just like, "Oh my God, I'm gonna pass out right here on the New York City subway." So I got up, and I started to try to make my way from them. It was very, very crowded. I started to feel faint, and I looked at this woman sitting down, and I said, "You know, I really, really don't feel good. Is there any way I could take your seat?" And she kind of looked up at me in that, New York way, and she's like, "Oh, I don't feel so good myself." So she didn't let me sit down. So the door opened, and I kind of like made my way off. I had some fruit in my bag because I had packed for the day. I ate some fruit, and I sort of revived a little bit. That's just a snapshot of the things that have happened to me just because I have blood injury injection phobia. So you might be wondering why in the world I would even go subject myself to go see a plastic surgeon. The reason I had to go was because a breast surgeon had given me a referral a few days later. I had just been diagnosed with breast cancer, and I had no choice. I didn't go to the doctor to find the lump. I found the lump on my own at home, and then I was pretty much facing the question of, will you let this fear of doctors and needles and blood and just going into an exam room and having someone look at you possibly kill you because you're afraid for them to check you? So I mustered up the courage to go in with my husband. I had not been to the doctor in years. The last time I had a full physical and a blood test was at 12 years old. The last time I went only once to the gynecologist because I felt like I had to. I was 18. It was a terrible experience. I cried, I screamed, I got through the appointment, and I vowed I would never go back. I only went to the doctor after 12 if I had to have a vaccination for school, and I was pretty much forced to go, or else I couldn't go to school. So I went to see that plastic surgeon because I needed to deal with the fact that I had breast cancer. I was young. I was happy otherwise. I was married. I belonged to this great big Greek Italian family. I had a wonderful job. I really had something to live for. I just needed some help with the cancer and with the fear. So when I went in for the biopsy, I saw a woman named Dr. Stephanie Bernick. She worked at St. Vincent's Comprehensive Cancer Center, which is in Israel. And when I walked into the exam room, I just told her how scared I was and a little bit about my history. The first thing she did was told me to call her Stephanie instead of Dr. Burnett. And right then, I just sort of felt like a shield go down because I saw her more like a person instead of a doctor who, I had been afraid of doctors all these years. One of the reasons I had been afraid, it was because I had this fainting response, but it was also because when I would go in to see my pediatrician or a doctor later for a vaccination, they really didn't meet me with much sympathy or compassion. They were really kind of like, oh, you're not a baby, what's the big deal, just get the shot, and little kids do it. And it really made me feel quite embarrassed. And it made me turn the other way where I was afraid to go and sort of be humiliated. So I was afraid of fainting, and then I was afraid of the human response, which was kind of just to feel silly and belittled. Dr. Burnett was the first doctor to ever sit down face-to-face with me and to listen to my fears and to smile and to nod and to tell me that she was going to work through things with me and that everything was going to be okay. So she helped me get through the procedure of the biopsy by doing something called demystifying it. And what she did was, she didn't just say, okay, you're going to come in a week and you're going to do this biopsy, and then I would leave with this mystery in my mind. What is that? What is it going to be? Honestly, I would be so scared to return. I hadn't been to the doctor in so long. I was just even afraid to sit in the exam room. She said, I'm going to show you what I use to do the biopsy. Can I do that? And I said yes. So she took this huge implement out that looked 10 feet long, and it sort of held the needle that she was going to use to do the biopsy. So she explained to me, she's like, look, this is not a clown needle, it's not this big. This is the implement that I use to hold my hand steady. This is the needle. Do you want to hold it? And I didn't really, but I took it and I held it and I turned it over. She said, see, it's pretty heavy, this is what it's going to be like, I'm going to hold it. Why don't you lay down here and we'll sort of go through the steps so that you're not surprised on that day. And I did. My husband held my hand, I laid down. Now, I was still whimpering the whole time, but I knew she wasn't going to actually go through and do it. She explained to me, you're going to feel a cool sensation where the area is. It's going to be a brownish color. I'm cleaning the area. I forgot what the thing is called that you use to clean that area that's brownish. You guys probably should know. But she said it's going to feel cool. It's going to be brown. Don't think it's weird. It'll be fine. You're going to turn your head. I'm going to put the needle in, and then I'm going to take out the sample. So this really helped me because then I didn't really have to imagine. I mean, if you're afraid of something or you're going into a situation where you don't really know what to expect, you sort of always imagine the worst. And at least now I had some sort of frame of reference. And I still cried during the appointment. I cried days up to the appointment to get this biopsy. I cried in the room. I cried for 2 hours in the room. I cried and begged her not to do it. And she took the time to say, we can do it, and I know you need more time, and I have another patient in the other room, so I'm going to step out for a few minutes, and you're going to collect yourself, and then I'm going to come back, and we're going to try again. We went back and forth like this for quite a while. And while she was gone, I'm looking at my husband, and I'm like, I can't believe this woman. She probably hates me. She probably thinks I'm crazy because, this is so out of the ordinary. And he's like, I don't think she hates you. I think she really wants to help you. And honestly, if she had not stayed the course with me and had not told me after I begged to leave, you're going to leave and you're going to regret it because you're going to wonder what this is, and you're not going to want to come back. And finally, I closed my eyes and I just said, do it. And she did it. And I screamed and I cried, but she did it, and she got the sample she needed. And had she not stayed the course, I don't know if another surgeon who I knew of would have been able to help me at that time and to get me the diagnosis I needed. It might have gone on further, it might have spread further. Thankfully, it was a stage 1 breast cancer, and I was able to go to the next step, which was how to deal with getting treatment and still being so afraid of needles. I was really comforted to know that there was someone I could reach out to, and that maybe she opened the door to show me that there are people in the medical community who I could trust and who will listen to me and be compassionate and patient. I had body scans ahead of me, I had multiple blood tests, I had a mastectomy, I had chemotherapy, I had breast reconstruction. So the breast reconstruction was what brought me to that plastic surgeon. His job was to put an expander under the tissue of my breast right after the mastectomy. And then he told me that I have to come in for consecutive visits, maybe 8 or 9 different visits, and have saline injected into that expander with a big needle, about probably 8 or 9 times. I wouldn't be able to move, or else it would hurt. I just sat in the chair and I cried, and I didn't know how I could possibly go through sitting with a needle going into my breast consecutive times. But I had something in my back pocket, and that was my exchange with Stephanie Vernon. And I told him, listen, I'm really afraid. I told him about Stephanie, and he said, I know all about it. Stephanie called me, and we talked, and we're going to do this together. So there was another person who told me, it's going to be okay. So I'm here today to share this journey with you and to put a face to the word called phobia. And more importantly, to give you information so that if you come across somebody like me, or somebody even half as phobic as me, you have a little bit of a background so that you can help them get the treatment that they need. And it doesn't have to be about saving lives because they have breast cancer. It can be about helping ease their fears if they're going to get a shot for school, or taking care of them after they've been in the hospital for a car accident. Someone who's phobic will never go to the doctor, but if you're in an accident and you have no choice and an ambulance comes and brings you, you have someone on your hands who is really going to be scared and need your scientific help, but your emotional help too. So I'm going to just take a closer look.